For the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Good morning, Martin County, Treasure Coast. We are back with Meet Your Candidate. And again, I know if you're usually tuning in to listen to Mark Breckbill this morning, it's a surprise I'm back. Mark has very generously donated his time to our show so that everybody here can get to know the candidates better. So this season, we've really been able to have a lot of better in-depth interviews and discussions with the candidates, and I think it's helped everybody just get to know their platform a little better. And today is no exception. I have Laura Giobbi in the studio from 9 to 10, and I will have Troy McDonald in from 10 to 11. Both of them are running for the City of Stuart Commission. Laura is running against incumbent Becky Bruner. And Laura, welcome to the show again.
Well, hi, Casey. It's so great to see you again. So got to see you at the Republican picnic, and then, gosh, I haven't been on the the podcast since May.
Yes.
So a lot has happened in the last 2 months.
Well, you're officially a qualified candidate because in May you were not qualified, and I have a lot of candidates in that don't get qualified ahead of that time. And so we kind of had a little bit of an idea of what your focus was, but a lot of time has passed, and you're absolutely right. You have been out to a lot of different events. I know that we had a forum, the We Care Martin forum that you attended, and that was very interesting because a lot of residents were in the audience.
Yes, they came out. It was so pleasant to see people becoming involved, but it's been happening. I mean, I would go to those commission meetings, and initially there were a few people who'd show up, but as soon as those blue signs started showing all over town and bulldozers were everywhere, people were there filling the room. I mean, it was amazing to see that small town politics take place. And they would be voicing, sometimes begging the commissioners, please don't approve this project. And projects were just approved, other than one commissioner, Chris Collins, who would ask questions, wanting to know, how is this benefiting our community? And he would say no. But the other four commissioners said yes. And so those projects passed. And we can see this is now over the last, 5 to 7 years, those projects, some of them are built. They've created more traffic, although some of our commissioners will tell you they don't see a change in traffic. And I always say, I want their addresses. I want to see, they must only go out at 2 a.m. in the morning. I mean, it's not possible they don't see the traffic.
So Laura Giobbi, I appreciate you coming back in. Let's step back for those that maybe didn't hear you on the first show. Who is Laura Giobbi? Let's talk about your background and your experience that brought you here. How long have you been in Stuart, and what was the impetus? And you kind of talked about it already of why you decided to run.
Okay. Well, I certainly grew up in Brooklyn, New York. My husband and I, we actually, if you know anything about New York, we were 4 stoops away from each other. So we know each other our whole life. We got married, and we both wanted to live in a small town. And so we moved to a small town in Connecticut, and we loved it. But we have family down here in Palm Beach Gardens, West Palm, and so we wanted, as we got a little older, to move down south. And we went to visit relatives, and it was really nice, but it was too crowded. And we said, so my cousin said to me, well, let's go. There's a cute little town just maybe 20 minutes north of us. She said, let's go to lunch. So we came to Stuart. Frank and I fell in love with it immediately. Mm-hmm. And so then in 2007, we bought our condo, and we've been here ever since. And unfortunately, over the last number of years, Stuart isn't that small little town that we moved to. And I've only been here since 2007, and I don't have generationals here that, people for my family that have been here for generations. So I can only understand how outraged they are, because I've seen the change and I'm not happy. And my father and grandfather didn't grow up here. So, I mean, it's like unbelievable, the amount of change. And let me say that development is good for any community. But what has happened here in the city of Stuart and what has happened in Martin County, it's not development. It's overdevelopment on steroids without any consequence to infrastructure. Developers were able to get setbacks, density. I mean, the list goes on and on. So...
Absolutely. And so you've seen a lot of changes here in the last 17 years.
Yes.
And that's really the big impetus. I mean, there are a lot of things, and particularly for me, I think since COVID hit, it's just the growth has been unbelievable. It's almost a perfect storm. It seemed like we had so many people moving here. So it's been a really difficult to handle all the changes, all the traffic, all the building, and so that's where Laura stepped up and said, "I want to sit on that dais and see if we can make a difference here." So, I guess with that being said, what would distinguish you from the incumbent you're running against on the dais?
Okay, I think that it is the responsibility. You're the steward of your community when you become a commissioner or anything in that like frame. You are the steward of your community, and you need to do the best for your community, not something that benefits developers, And again, a development could be a good thing, maybe not in the exact density that not giving away parking. So those things all need to be looked at in conjunction with other projects that have been approved within the last year or 2 years or coming up in the next 6 months. They can't be approved in a vacuum as if they're the only project that's going to happen. So you need to review it. You need to work with the other commissioners. There's the admins at town. All of those people come into play. And you really need to determine, is this project good for the city of Stuart? Because at the end, we are the locals. Even if you haven't lived here for 80 years, you're still the local. And it should benefit you, and it should not outprice you. I mean, there are so many locals who can't even afford to live here anymore. I mean, it's to the point of almost ridiculous.
And that's actually one of my questions for you, was talking about affordable housing and, what type of initiatives are out there. So as you're sitting on the dais, you said you really need to look at individual projects. What particularly are you looking at when a project comes in front of you, if you're sitting there?
Well, first thing I think what you should be looking at, how does it fall? We have a comprehensive plan. We have zoning laws. They need to be adhered to. They can't always just be put to the wayside. There will be occasions where a project might need a little give here or there, but not to the level that has been over the last number of years. So you want to look at, what does the project do for not just the community, but the surrounding area. There's a lot of talk about, well, the person who bought that property has property rights. What about the people surrounding that property? They've been there for years. They have property rights too. So you need to take all your constituents into consideration. How does it affect our infrastructure? It's not just about building a project, an apartment, whatever. It's really about, how does that affect our taxes? There's infrastructure, there's roads, there's schools, fire, police. All of that needs to be taken into account. You can't bring in 20%, 30% increase in population and not have those things affected.
Absolutely. And speaking of taxes, the taxpayers do expect judicious fiscal responsibility when allocating money for budget items. How do you assess and prioritize different budgetary needs and allocation within the city's budget?
Well, I'm not a numbers person. I'll be the first person to tell you that. But I'm a quick study, and I think you need to first go over budget line by line. Okay? So there's the, it's like being in business. There's the set fixed cost. There's those things that you need to pay for. There's no wiggle room. There's salaries. There's all of those things. But then you have the rest of your budget. How do you allocate it to the best use in your community?
So speaking of the budget and looking at how to allocate things, let's talk a little bit about the Bright Line station.
Oh, not my favorite subject.
No, it's not a favorite subject, but it's a big subject here. And, we go back to 2018 when the Martin County, just to give listeners a little background, Martin County had a settlement agreement with Bright Line that if they built that first of all, there would be a train station on the Treasure Coast. If it came to Martin County, the county agreed to pay for half of the station. Not one person asked how much that would cost, by the way. That was the county. Fast forward to last fall when it was decided that the Treasure Coast station would be bid out, and Stuart, Martin County kind of put together a bid and was awarded the Bright Line station. Yes. With the caveat now that City of Stuart is going to be on the hook for 30 of the $45 million that Martin County is going to put into this train station. You'll get a parking garage out of it. But just let's talk about that a little bit. It's a lot of money for the City of Stuart, $30 million out of the budget. And I know that they're hoping to get grants, but I think that you have some, more information for the listeners about that.
Okay, first of all, that deal, that agreement with Martin County and Brightline is for the train station. So, of course, even though we're in the city of Stuart, we're Martin County residents, Martin County taxes. So, yes, we're on the hook for half of that. But the city of Stuart is taking on the full financial responsibility of the parking garage. So, double whammy. We get to do both. And I'm almost outraged. Number one, it's a private entity, and it's a foreign company. Why are we subsidizing anything? If you want to be here and you think that this station and this Brightline is going to be so successful, why aren't you fronting the money? Isn't that what corporate and capitalism is all about? Why are the taxpayers on the hook for it? And I don't know a train entity in the United States that is profitable. At some point, they're always subsidized by the federal government, the state that they're in, or the city.
That is true of all the passenger rail
Yes.
in North America.
Right. I have no proof to this, but I have to personally think that this was really nothing about moving people. This was about getting better track for the freight. It really had not. Have you seen the Bright Lines? I mean, there's 2 or 3 a day going from Orlando to Miami, and maybe eventually we'll stop here.
And just a handful of people on them generally. It's really something. And I started Florida Not All Aboard, so I certainly have some background here with the train. And it was something that we felt as well, is that all the double tracking was going to be for the benefit of the freight. And lo and behold, even the bridge here in Stuart, it's a huge issue. Our county commission said 15 minutes for the boaters was plenty of time in the agreement. Very equal. Brightline at the time was agreeing to 45 minutes out of the hour. Since then, there's been a lot of outrage from the boaters, and they're trying to, and they feel at this time they have a more equitable agreement. But Brightline is going to get a new bridge on taxpayers' back. Very expensive here. We need a bridge, yes, but this is a privately owned bridge for that train company only. It's their nearly 100-year-old bridge.
Again, why are we footing the cost of all of this? I mean, it is our bridge. But
it's their bridge.
Oh, it's their bridge now.
It's
okay,
the train
I was
bridge.
Misinformed.
Nope,
Okay.
nope. Oh, the train owns that. That's
Okay.
definitely, yes.
So the drawback to that, and I may be wrong, but I understand that it doesn't really accommodate every boat coming through. It accommodates 90% of the boats. So
Yes, your larger boats, even with the new bridge that they're predicting, which is still has to be studied and all this. So, we'll see how many boats end up being able to traverse under it while it's in the down position. But
and we're a coastal community. What do we, not only to enjoy our own waterways, it's also for tourists and, the people who own those boats who live here. So this is something that, this is personal, I feel. It's not just, it always seems to be now about Brightline.
So, Laura, if you were sitting on the commission at the time that this was all being discussed, because there really wasn't a vote for the people of whether or not we would even ask Brightline for a train station. Honestly, Martin County and the city of Stuart could have said, just give it to St. Lucie County or Indian River County. We don't want it here. They could have done that.
Yes.
They didn't. What would have you done if you were on the dais?
If I just want to backtrack a little, I'm not sure of the time frame, but there was probably 6-7 years ago that we spent $5 million to fight Brightline. So, I mean, why all of a sudden open arms, come in, we'll pay for a garage, we'll do half the station. I don't understand what happened. So that's number one. And then when you go to commission meetings, you'll hear them say, well, we've forever wanted a station here. So I wasn't here for those years where they say they wanted a station. I was here for the years that they spent $5 million of taxpayer money to fight the station, and now we're spending more money to have the station.
Right.
So
that's government using other people's money.
Right. I would have certainly thought it'd be great for Fort Pierce or Port St. Lucie to have the station. We do not have the infrastructure to support all of this and the traffic. And I may be off track with this, this is a personal feeling. That station's going to be here, and there is a portion of the town government and people who think it's going to make money for Stuart, going to make us a destination site. People are going to come here and spend money. What I really think is going to happen is people from Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce are going to come here, park their car, take the train to Orlando or Miami, spend their money there. Maybe they'll come back, maybe they'll spend overnight, but probably not, because it's not even it's not even an hour for them to get here if they want to spend the day in Stuart. So I think we're spending a lot of money to accommodate the surrounding areas so they could get to Orlando and Miami. there's something really wrong about that.
And that's actually been a discussion with the location of the station. It's really an area of the city of Stuart where congestion is going to be even a greater concern.
Right.
So it's behind the courthouse there for folks that
Yes.
don't
No.
know.
No. Yeah, for those who don't know. Yes. I mean, it's. I don't even know. I don't pretend to know what will happen once the station is here and the trains are coming through. The only thing I could see as a bright spot is that the train will have to slow down if it's going to stop. But you're right. It's in such an area. Not that we had an area to really have great traffic flow, because we already don't. Confusion Corner is already congested. And the amount of accidents and, people barely know how to maneuver Confusion Corner without all of a sudden train traffic, people trying to get to the train, people trying to park. So I honestly don't think the location is great. I don't know where else it would have been put. Maybe if it were put somewhere else, it might bring some tourism to Stuart, but I doubt it. I really believe it needed to be somewhere else. Again, I'm outraged that we're spending this kind of money to have something that most people don't want.
Laura, do you know where the grant status is with the Bright Line station? Because that was what taxpayers are being told from the county and the city is, don't worry, we're going to get grants.
Right. Which is, to be perfectly honest, let me first say, and most people know this, but a lot of people don't, grant money is not free money. Because as taxpayers, we pay it at a federal, state, or whatever level. We're paying for that grant money that goes out to everywhere that it's awarded to.
100%.
Yes. So that's just one thing. Yeah, it seems free at the time you're getting it. Most of them come with hooks. You have to adhere to certain rules to get the money, maintain the grant, and all of that. So those are other things that tie your hands as a small community or any community. You're given this, okay, here's this money that we'll give you. You don't have to pay it back. But these are the conditions. And they're usually not favorable. They always entail something that's not in our best interest. So, and then, yes, it was supposed to be, as it was presented at a commission meeting, that not to worry, most of this would be handled by grant money. But even the part that wouldn't be is not money. It would have been money that had to be borrowed. So as we all know, if you borrow $100,000 for your mortgage, it isn't $100,000 at the end of the day that you're paying. You're paying whatever the going rate is, the 5%, the 7%, over the course of 20 years. That multiplies. So that $100,000 that you may have borrowed to offset the grant is now maybe $1 million that you're paying back. Like I said, I'm not a finance person, but I know they're not letting you just pay it back over time with no interest.
So what about parking? Let's talk about that. And that was one of the issues you did want to discuss, was the downtown parking issues. Of course, this is kind of the holy grail here, that we're going to get a parking garage with the train station, which myself, I think, yes, we are. That's a good thing for parking. However, right now, Sailfish Circle, a lot of times there's parking there all the time, and people just don't want to make that short walk. So now you have this train station parking. It's still not parked right in front of the restaurants and the stores. You're still going to have a walk. So let's just talk about your views about downtown parking and how you would make it a little bit easier for folks to be able to shop and enjoy our restaurants.
Right. Well, that part is just about the numbers. You have so many spaces, so many businesses, and so many people. And we don't have the land to expand parking. So a garage is inevitable. But I think it should be built, or at least viewed, and in the final design, be in the strictest of detail. And as to size, look, location. Something that would benefit walking pedestrians. I mean, the reality is, I know my opponent says that she wants Stuart to be a walking urban city. Well, downtown is already an urban walking city. Most people park where they can, or they'll take the tram, or if they grab parking, they're walking around. But the rest of Stuart, it's impossible for it to be an urban walking city. And it isn't what everybody wants. People like their little neighborhoods. They like that. They like to be able to, get in the car and try and come downtown, go somewhere else. So the parking is an issue. We do need a parking garage. And if we're going to foot the bill anyway, it should be under our control and not for the benefit of Brightline. And we do need a way to have people be able to come to downtown, feel comfortable for walk, not be frustrated going around 4 and 5 times looking for a space. Maybe we need to make more spaces like where the tram picks people up, maybe that's what we could do with some of our property. Again, you need to sit with the other commissioners, and you need to sit with the planning division of the town, and you need to work those things out. I mean, isn't that the point of being on the commission and having a planning board, is to plan out the direction of the city, plan how it's going to flow. I mean, that is the purpose. And so, again, I think that a lot of projects have been approved not with that in mind, not long-term, not the feasibility of what's happening around it. They're just kind of plucked here, there, and everywhere, and hopefully it will all work out. Well, it hasn't. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do to move those buildings. Now we have to be creative, get a cohesive plan together of how to work around that, and how to make our historic old downtown work, how to make the rest of the city of Stuart work. And it's not an overnight. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but everyone needs to put their heads together and decide what's going to happen over the next 10 years here in the city of Stuart.
When you're approving projects, too, that's one thing, we talked about it already a little bit, but let's delve a little further. And that is you have to balance land rights. But a lot of these projects you're talking about had variances or exceptions. So what would you do with a lot of these projects? And the city is almost built out as it is. So you're probably going to be looking at projects that will be repurposed lots and moving forward. What is your view on variances and exceptions?
Well, number one, we are at the point where we're just into redevelopment. There's really not, I mean, as you can tell, there's every little space is being taken up to maximize density and build. So there's really not much large swaths of land where you can say, well, we can put a park and we can put some housing. I'd like to see more individual homes. I think over the last 5 or 7 years, we've built like 138 homes versus 2,200 apartments. And that doesn't even include townhouses. I'm just talking about apartments. So I think that when you sit down to a project, especially now that we're in redevelopment, you need to be really conscious of, and I'm not, again, a person who knows all of the zoning laws and whatever. These properties now have already granted density exceptions and whatnot. So how do we do that in the stage of redevelopment? I mean, certainly not grant more. Maybe there's a way we could pull back and say, well, you know what? You really need to provide a little more parking, because there's not parking anywhere else. And there's no street parking. This isn't New York City, or a big city where there's all this parking and parking garages that you could go to. So it's a very fine line that I think you need to sit down, again, with people who in the government, in the city, that do this for a living. I'm not talking about calling in outside consultants. They are hugely expensive, and we spend all that money on consultants, and then everybody is like, oh, what a great presentation, let's approve that. Well, no, we need to really get down, roll up our sleeves, take out the pencils, and really sit down and decide, how are we going to do this? How does this work for the person who owns the property, now wants to redevelop it, and how does it work for the town?
Laura, if you're elected, and I ask everybody that sits in your chair this very question, what type of commissioner are you going to be? Meaning, when projects are coming through, the agendas come out ahead of every meeting. Are you going to be a commissioner that says, you know what, we have staff that's hired to tell me if this is a good project and a bad project, and I'm going to take staff's advice? Or are you a commissioner that's going to look at that agenda and really review it and come up with some, questions and perhaps concerns or not, or supportive issues of that item?
Well, I kind of had a little taste of that. Chris Collins appointed me at the end of 2022, and unfortunately I had to leave in the beginning of 2024 for family reasons. But I had like a year on the LPA, which is the Local Planning Advisory Board. They have no powers, but they basically review projects before they go to the commission with a recommendation. And so that was my first, what's the word I'm looking for? That was my first entree into seeing how this works. So we'd meet on a Thursday once a month. On Tuesday, I'd be texting, where's the package? Where's the package? Usually by Tuesday or Wednesday, I'd have the package. First package I received was 132 pages. I stood up all night reading it because I really wanted highlighted sections. So when I went to that meeting, I had questions. And I guess no one questioned most things because I was looked at like, new girl on the block, are you kidding me? And I was like questioning developers. One developer had come before and he had bought a piece of property that was zoned for commercial. And he was before the LPA first and then to the commissioners to ask for a change to multi-family housing. And my question to him was, why did you buy a piece of commercial property? Why didn't you buy a piece of property that had housing and you could ask for multiple housing or whatever? Really didn't have an accurate answer. But I'm like, I don't know. Business people don't invest that kind of money if they don't know they're going to get what they're looking for. And there was another occasion where and I don't know if you heard about it, they approved a standalone ER, which I think is a great idea. Always need for more of those situations. It's by a company that is out of Port St. Lucie. It's on the corner of Monterey and Canner. So it's like, great idea, like Costco, wrong location. So again, I came to the meeting and I was prepared. I had already called over to their main office in Port St. Lucie, and the question I asked was, do you have a contract with Port St. Lucie Hospital? Yes, we do. So at the meeting, I asked the question, which was, do you have a contract with Cleveland Clinic? No, we don't. So my question is, you now have a person in the ER who hopefully got there within 10 minutes of needing being there rather than the half hour they probably sat on Canner waiting to get to you. What would be your decision in sending them to a hospital? Oh, well, he says, wherever the patient wants to go. I said, what if the patient is not conscious? Well, then it would go to Port St. Lucie. So now you maybe have sat in Canner Highway in an ambulance waiting to get into the ER. The ER is now going to send you to Port St. Lucie. Again, great idea, wrong location. And then if you're going to come into Stuart or Martin County or whatever, then have a contract with the local hospital. I mean, these are the things that I feel are the planning. Those questions should have been asked. But all of those were approved by the staff.
Well, while you were sitting on the LPA, can you give us an example of a project that you did not support that moved forward anyway?
Actually, other than one, I think I said no to all of them, which is disheartening because you're really the only person saying no and you feel like, did I make the wrong decision? But I know I made the right decision, and I'm not afraid to say no. I think that's the difference about me being on the dais, is that I'm not afraid to say no. If no isn't necessary, that's what you're going to get from me. I'm really kind of, what you see is what you get. But like I said, other than one project that I thought was good, all of them I said no to.
All of them. Can you give listeners an idea of what went through that you said no to that ended up going through?
I don't remember the exact project, but I do remember that they wanted half parking spaces.
Okay.
And in my mind, I'm saying, okay, you show me a half a car, I'll give you half a parking space. I mean, really, but it was passed. I mean, well, it was approved. And then it went on to the commission for approval. And the same question was asked by Chris Collins. Half a parking space? I mean, but these projects do get approved. And the reality is that they talk about the fact, well, you have half of the spaces. But most of these apartments are so expensive that if you have young people renting them, you're going to have 2 or 3 roommates. What happens to those other 2.5 cars? Where do they go?
Good point. Good point. I'm going to switch gears here for a second. Deanna Peterson, appreciate you tuning in. She said, Laura, you have my vote.
Oh, thank you, Deanna.
So we're going to talk briefly about campaign donations. Folks, you can go to the county for county commissioners, but you can also go to the city of Stuart, look up candidate information. All their finance reports are on there. Laura, can you provide transparency on how your campaign funds are sourced and how you ensure your donor contributions do not unduly influence your policy positions or decisions if elected?
Yeah. Well, first I can say they will not influence because they're basically mine and my husband's. Other than some really great people in town who've chosen to donate and some friends, the donations are really small. So we're really funding everything ourselves. But even in that, if a developer approached me, especially an out-of-town developer, and said, I want to give $1,000 to your campaign, I'd say, no, thank you. Because you don't want to be beholden to anyone. People who have given me money are people who live in town and they want to change. They're friends who want to see me succeed. And there's my husband who knows he has to give me the money.
That's great. Good husband.
Good husband. Very good husband. And I personally feel if you've taken donations from developers, out of town or whatever, when that project comes before you by that developer, you should be recusing yourself. You should not have a vote in that project. I mean, that's just the way it should be.
Speaking of government transparency, what is your approach to the community engagement and government transparency? And to piggyback on that, the county has a wonderful email system where the public has access to all the emails that come into the county administrator and the county commissioners. Stuart does not have such a system. You have to turn in a public records request. So would you be supportive of some system like that at the city level?
I would be. Actually, I live in an over 55 community, so there's a lot of people who don't get out that often. And if for them, they do navigate the internet, it would be so much easier if they could do that, or other than relying on a friend to help them go down, fill out a form. I really open transparency in any government, because the minute you start to not give that out to the people, there's reasons why they come and they're outraged. It's like maybe the third or fourth time that they've said something, or the third or fourth time that they're looking for something. I think the one thing I have to say that people forget, maybe after a couple of years, I don't know, I won't be on the commission that long. I'm 74 years old, and I'm willing to dedicate 4 years, and hopefully someone will come behind me and pick up the mantle. But to be perfectly honest, you need to remember that you are not only a steward of that community, but you're a public servant. These are your constituents. You owe them your time. You owe them your concern. You need time to listen to them. Now, you can't always say, yes, that's great, I can do that. I was a board president for 5 years in my condo. And not because I wanted to be. Believe me, after the first year, I said, okay, who else is going to take over? But no one wanted the job. So for 4 years, I was the board president. And I can tell you there were times people were not happy with me. But I did the best and what was good for the majority of the community, because that is really what rules, the majority of your people. The people who put you in office, the people who voted for you. So as a public servant, you owe that to the constituents. I think that when they come before the commission, they should be spoken to in a way that you're talking to your neighbor, because that's who they are. Come, tell me your problem. Maybe I can fix it. But if I can't fix it, at least I can tell you why, and I can tell you maybe I'll try, and all of those reasons. People want to hear that. They don't want to just be ignored. And then, it's the only thing I don't understand. I'm sure there's some government reason why the commissioners can't answer directly unless they have the mic to really answer the people coming before the dais. So I think that there should be an open dialogue. I think people should be able to have that.
And the second part of that was the community engagement. And honestly, the city of Stuart has, different pockets of different neighborhoods. You've got people living on the waterfront. You've got people in newer neighborhoods and the condos and the apartments that have come in. You've got East Stuart. You've got old neighborhoods. So there's just a lot of different demographics within the city of Stuart. How do you engage all these different areas?
Well, I've been door knocking, so I've been to a lot of neighborhoods, and people are so receptive, and it is like one big neighborhood. And while they understand that there's a need maybe for something downtown or whatever, they are concerned about their little neighborhood. I mean, East Stuart is a great neighborhood. I was there the last couple of weeks, and people would say, come in, have a glass of water, have something, sit down. It's so hot out. And, there I am knocking on the door. Hi, I'm Laura Giobbi running for a commission seat. And everyone's been so engaging. So I think every little community within the city has its own needs. But I think as a whole, they all do understand that coming together and working for the benefit of each other is what's going to really help Stuart going forward. And I think that is such an amazing thing for any community.
Folks, those that are watching here on Facebook, we have to ask Laura, what on earth? You do not look 74.
Well, thank you so much.
Fantastic. Whatever you do and whatever you're eating, and maybe it's things you're enjoying here in Stuart, but you look fantastic. Would never guess you were anywhere near 74.
Well, thank you very much. I don't really do anything, although I had a cousin when I was very young who said, never wear face makeup. It doesn't do well for your face. And I never did.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, but I mean, I have, certainly good Italian olive skin, which has now deepened down here in Florida. So, those genes are just there, and I'm lucky to have them. As
Well,
far as looking great, I'm Italian. I eat too much, so that's a whole other thing.
not a problem there at all. And I'm going to go to another question here in a second. For those that are listening on WSTU AM 1450, if you want to watch this interview, it will be uploaded to my YouTube page, The Casey Ingram Show on YouTube, by tomorrow. So, Laura Giobbi, again, she's running for City of Stuart Commission against Becky Bruner, the incumbent. Tell us a few things that you just love about Stuart.
Well, again, like I said, I grew up in a city, even though even within the city there are little neighborhoods. But for the most part, it's a big, bustling city. And Brooklyn is actually a borough of New York City, for those that may or may not know. And it is huge. I mean, if Brooklyn were a city unto itself, it'd be the third largest in the United States.
Wow.
So it is big. But I really wanted to, I mean, I grew up in Brooklyn, and, our form of fun was, well, here you call it fire hydrant. We called it a Johnny Pump. You open up the fire hydrant in the summer, and the police, the fire department would come and put a grate over it, so it would be like a sprinkler. And these were the things that we enjoyed. So when I was starting a family, I wanted them to have a backyard. I wanted to grow my own vegetables, make my own tomato sauce, things like that. So a small town was really important to us. And when we moved to Connecticut, that's what we had. So coming down to Stuart and saying, this is it. We fell in love with it one afternoon having lunch, and we started looking around. We picked an older community, not all into the bells and whistles. Again, the community itself is built in 1974, so it's older, but within the community, right within Kingswood, is such a great group of people. And I just love Stuart. I love being able to go to different areas of Stuart, whether it be East Stuart, down by the water. There's just so many places, or being able to go up even to Counter Highway before all of this congestion to just go and maybe do some shopping. It's just great, and there's all different types of homes. So it's not all cookie cutter, and I don't like that. I mean, even as a board president, I would say to people, yeah, we're all cookie cutter, but you know what? Everybody can do what they'd like in the front within reason to make it more your own, because that's really what we all want, is that little space that's ours.
Another question that I ask all the candidates that came in from a listener is, what is the proper role, size, and scope of government?
Well, I don't want to start at the federal level. I think we're way over bloated with government. I don't think that was the original plan. The original plan was to help govern. What the city should be doing, or the county, or anyone, is you should be overseeing protection, police, fire, schools, education. Number one, I'm really against the city or anyone being in business. We're not in competition with the businesses in town. Our purpose here is to support them, not be competitive with them. We have more businesses than I think we should be in. I mean, so I think role of government should be less, not more.
Really important issue, and probably one of the biggest ones here for the Treasure Coast and Martin County, is our water quality issues. And there's a couple things here. So let's focus in more first on the city water itself, the city wells that you wanted to kind of discuss, the water quality.
Okay, so the wells they're very old, and I'm not blaming overdevelopment on everything, but you can't possibly take all of these apartments, build them and overbuild the area, and already tax an aging system. And that really is what's happened. It's not that they wouldn't have needed to be repaired, but you've overtaxed it now at this point. So the repair probably would have come anyway because they were old. So we have, I don't know the exact numbers because I can't, I believe we have something like 16 wells are failing and need to be replaced. We do get our water source from two places, shallow wells and deep wells, which come from the aquifer, which is, the better source of water. So we do have a system, this reverse osmosis, which is great. And I know that there's plans in the next 5 years to increase it, because it's going to need to be, especially with the overdevelopment that we've had. But basically at this point, we're looking at probably, the city needs to maximize the production of that reverse osmosis to yield 3 million gallons a day. It was originally built for 1.5.
Oh, wow.
Right. And what happens is residents, visitors, and businesses use an average of 3.1 gallons a day. Just as it stands today, not talking about anything else that's going to be built, that's already been approved and the land has been cleared or is about to be cleared. So it's 3.1 million gallons a day on an overtaxed system. So we're certainly looking at, I want to say, if I remember correctly, because I don't think I wrote it down, that it was something like 60 to 90 million dollars over the next 10 years.
Wow.
I mean, it's not tomorrow.
Right.
We're going to have to replace some wells. Their walls are deteriorating. So there are things that we're going to have to do sooner rather than later, but over the course of 10 years, that is the cost.
Right. Indiantown understands that very well. They've
Yes.
had a lot of water issues as well. Barbara Osborne, thank you for tuning in, and she said that she's glad to see you at the Rivers Coalition meetings.
Ah, yes. Interesting. I think they've all done a great job. It is a coalition of different groups coming together. I do want to say at this point that Attorney Max Stuckey, I don't know if he's been an attorney in town for a long time and an advocate of getting that St. Lucie River cleared up. So it's a good coalition, but we need to do something more. And cities have the ability, on behalf of their residents, to basically go to court and say, finally, stop the dumping. Stop. Because we need to spend time to repair that river. Because I have to be honest, it's a God-given gift to us. I love water. It's a God-given gift to us, and we cannot recreate it if it's ruined. If it's beyond repair at some point, no matter what else you do in Stuart, it's not going to matter. Because we need to have water for our families and ourselves. We need to enjoy them for pleasure, fishing, commercial fishing, and it's a part of our tourism. So if we don't work on that first and get that to where it needs to be, everything else doesn't matter.
Speaking of city taxes that we were talking about earlier, are they too high, about right, or pleasantly low?
Well, considering the size of the city and the things they've done, they're probably about right.
Perfect. Let's talk again. We touched on it earlier, but didn't delve into it a little deeper, and that is the affordable housing issue. We talked about it. There's a need for it. Do you have any ideas on how to make this happen for residents?
Well, I think and I've thought about it. There's certain things. We have a lot of homeless people, and it's not even affordable housing. They're homeless. A lot of veterans who are homeless. I would like to reach out to someone like Tunnels to Towers, where they're building little cities. They're building little tiny homes for veterans so that they're not homeless. Affordable. It's at this point, if you look at the average medium income in this area, you're talking about affordable being $2,000 a month for an apartment. And I've been to town hall enough to listen to commission meetings, and all they do talk about is the traffic. It's caused by people coming from Port St. Lucie to go to work. Well, I don't think that the people in Port St. Lucie are going to leave a home and come rent an apartment in Stuart for $2,000 to $3,000 a month so they don't have to get in their car and come to work. I mean, most of the United States commutes to work. So I don't know that that's the answer. But if you're looking to provide, as they do say, for the x-ray technicians, the workers in the restaurants and all of that, then that affordable part is not even attainable. We either need to make more agreements with developers as to the percentage that they give in a really affordable situation when they're building these developments. I noted I did an analysis of all of the apartments that are built at this point, and one going up. The one that isn't built yet is the only one I could find that actually had put aside 10% of the housing. So they're building 178 apartments on Southeast Central Parkway. I think it's going to be called Parkway Lofts or something.
Okay.
Yeah. And out of that, 17 of them will be affordable housing. Well, there's probably a booklet this big of people waiting for low-income housing and affordable housing. So I don't know what 17 is going to help. So the reality is everybody needs to put their heads together, reach out to charitable organizations who could maybe help work with getting these types of apartments. Auxiliary developments are another answer, these units that can be put on to what used to be considered mother-in-law apartments. Those could be helpful. I'd like to see them really for your adult children, relatives, grandparents, aunts, uncles, just because that to me is a better way to ease some of the housing for those individuals. So I think that there's, it's like a 10-prong situation. There's not one answer for this, but it is an answer of everyone in the community coming together, put their heads together, not-for-profits, corporations, businesses, people in commissioners, the people in town who do planning, I mean, we're an intelligent group of people. We're an intelligent nation. I cannot believe that we can't sit down, put our heads together, and alleviate or at least make a big dent in this situation.
Back to the train, there was a question about the train horns. So are you a proponent of the quiet zones? And there's two things to that. They're very annoying overnight. However, they're also a safety issue, so people realize there's a train coming. So what is your stance on the getting quiet zones for the city of Stuart?
Well, the people who want the quiet zones are probably not going to like me, and I'm sorry. I lived about maybe 200 feet from a railroad track, and I can tell you that after a number of years, you don't even hear it. You don't hear the train. I think it's something that just in your mind starts to take that noise down so that it's not affecting you in any way. But I live so close to a train. I lived in a town where it was a commuter train, and that train came through, and there were freight trains too that they would come through. So no, I can assure you that you will not hear them, or the level of noise you hear will be limited. But I would not, especially with all of the accidents we've had, and I'm not blaming Brightline, because there's a lot of people. My goodness, you shouldn't be trying to cross a railroad track if the lights are gleaming and the everything, the railroad things, the railroad. What are they called? The
crossing
bars,
gates,
the
gates.
The railroad gates are down. You should just stay put. The next 5 seconds you can wait,
Right.
or 10 minutes isn't going to change anything. Trying to cross that track is going to change your life. So yeah, I want to hear horns. I want people to know that train is coming.
We're coming down to the end of our hour. We've got about 10 minutes yet. So we got a few more things I want to cover. What are your priorities if you're elected? What are your top 3 priorities when you get into office?
Number one, I'd like to see a level of cohesiveness between the administrators, the commissioners, and the people. I don't feel that sometimes at a commission meeting. I feel that there's no one listening. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to be that commissioner, and I know that the other people on the dais would like to see that too, that there's an open dialogue. Number 2, of course, as I said, the St. Lucie River. To me, that is a great priority. One of the things I would be an advocate for is actually hiring an environmental attorney to take that to court for us. These are specialties. This is what they do. They take that environmental situation, they gather it, and they, on behalf of a town, because you can't sue as a person, but the town that you're in or the city, they can sue on your behalf. And that's what we need to happen. Okay, and then of course to look at development. How does it go further? Redevelopment. People will call me, "Oh, you're a no growth." Well, no, I'm not no growth. No one benefits from no growth. But how you grow is really important, and that is the thing that I think that I would bring into that. There'd be lots of questions. There might be some minor givebacks, but the developers will certainly find that in my voice alone, and I'm hoping that the other people on the dais would be, no. These are the things, if you want to build in our city, these are the things we need. And we'd like to work with you, but we're not giving away the store anymore.
For economically speaking, for the city, especially job-related question for our younger people, anybody really, do you have any changes or initiatives you'd want to see for the types of businesses that are coming into Stuart or are here that might be able to be changed with different commercial projects that would support higher job earnings, higher pay for folks?
Well,
That's part of the not being able to afford the homes. Is
right. It is part of that. Well, 2 things. If you stop giving away changes, if you stop letting people buy commercial and let them change it to multi-housing, we're never going to get commercial property. We're never going to get those people who are going to come in and make maybe a glass, we have so many businesses that could come to town and work on that. And we've done a great job in advocating that we're the greatest little coastal town to visit. We're all those wonderful things. Well, we could also be a mini little section of certain industries that would really do well here. And people can work here. And then maybe people could live here or live close enough that they're not spending an hour to come to work. So I think that there's lots of things to do. Number 1, you have to stop letting people change commercial to multi-housing. That's number 1. Number 2, again, everybody put their heads together down at town hall. Decide what industries work best for us. And goodness knows we don't need another Wawa or we don't need another fast food chain. We have them all. We're done. And we don't need another car wash.
What about hotels? You have one that's going up on Colorado.
Well, again, I do go out of the box. It's probably not my place to go, but I called Hilton because I wanted to speak to, I found out who the person was in charge of the Southeast. And I spoke to him, and I asked him, first question, have you ever been to Stuart? He said, great little town, charming town. I said, well, then you really should be pushing the person with that project to put a boutique hotel downtown. I don't really think there should have been a hotel right in the entrance of downtown. I certainly don't think a 4-story with a trivet that makes it a little higher. That was not necessary. But if you're going to put it, at least make it something comparable to historic downtown. And he just said, it basically said to me, it's about the dollars. It is about the dollars, he said, and it's the Hilton Blue that's going in is a low-priced hotel. He said, you put in a boutique hotel, the rooms have to be bigger, the charge is twice as much, and let's face it, the person putting in the hotel wants to make the biggest bang for his buck. So at the cost of who? At the cost of us. And that's, again, the thing I resent. Who benefits here? We should benefit, not the developers.
Barbara Osborne has a question for you. Would you help Robert Hamilton and Olga Hamilton restore their historic church and the poorly restored work done by by Patriot Construction? Patriot damaged the historic windows and exterior. I don't know anything about this project.
Right. I know that it needs, I didn't know that they were dealing with certain window people. I think that we could give guidance as to how to take those people to report them to the Attorney General in the state of Florida, to report them to Better Business, and take them to task. I'm not sure what dollars are involved, but depending on...
She added something very important. Patriot is working under a historic preservation grant administered through the City of Stuart Building Department.
Then I would certainly, if it were me, and that was an issue, I'd be pulling them in front of the commissioners or the staff and saying, okay, what's going on here? You're granted a status. You need to be doing the best job for our community, not the worst.
Again, we've been speaking with Laura Giobbi this hour. She is running for the City of Stuart Commission against incumbent Becky Bruner. Very informative, very insightful. I appreciate you taking this full hour to really let us know you a little bit better. My last question, and then we'll talk about how people can reach out to you if they want to talk with you, is what do you see as the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects in the city?
Well, first is our water system. Just in our condo complex alone, the state of Florida, the EPA, is having older condos replace or repair their pipes because they also are very old. So I think that that is a major thing. I think that that reverse osmosis, the LOSM, was an excellent way to go start the project. Needs to be added to, and I understand that is the plan. In 5 years, it'll be an even greater output. But so in conjunction with repairing what we have, taking care of those wells and the deterioration of their walls, and having LOSM, the reverse osmosis, project out more than double their output for the day to accommodate what we have just now. I think that those are certainly pressing. And again, within the realm of water, the St. Lucie River. And then there's a whole list of items with projects, how they're approved, all of those things. So it's a large list to look forward to try and attack when and if I get on the dais.
What about the big one, traffic?
Traffic. Well, we can't certainly create more roads or widen anything else. I think there needs to be a look at maybe there's a way to divert to a different avenue, maybe using part of Dixie Highway, just diverting some of the traffic to go around town versus just all on Canner Highway or US 1.
Laura Giobbi, how can people find you? I know you have a website. You're on Facebook.
Okay, so if you want, you can go to my website, which is votegiobbi.com. My email's info@votegiobbi.com. I have a Facebook page, which is Laura Giobbi for the Stuart City Commissioner, Group 2, and my telephone number is 772-208-9439. I want to thank everybody that I've door knocked and have been, instrumental in being a positive force. I'd like to thank all of the donors. I'd love to thank Casey. She's been so great in letting the voice of all of the people running for these positions. Thank you very much.
It's absolutely been my pleasure. Laura Giobbi, she's, again, as she said, running for Group 2 City of Stuart Commission against incumbent Becky Bruner. I know you're out there. It's a big task for our candidates to be out there running, and thank you. I love being able to give people a choice, and because of you, we have that. So I wish you well out there. August 20th, folks, is the important date. Make sure you vote. August 20th. Let's have a high voter turnout, and we're going to have Troy McDonald in the studio next.